In this video, we're going to create a design using Figma and then code it using Flutter. We've got a lot to do, so let's get started. To get started, we have a blank Figma file. I've named it story list, but you can name it whatever you want. And then we have to grab over our reference image. So we will be recreating this stories list view right here from the social media app design concept. I will put a link to the designer in the description so you can check this out. We're just going to copy the image and then we're going to paste it in. Paste here. Perfect. Now we're only going to be focusing on this side, but what we want to do to get started is we want to grab the colors that we're going to use. So we can do this by hitting R on our keyboard. It'll come up here and make a rectangle, and then we can just click to get a 100 by 100. We're going to click the little fill icon right here, and then we're going to use the swatch tool, and then we're going to grab this purple for the accent, and over on the right, we're going to rename it accent. Below that, then we are going to grab the font color so we can zoom into the image really well. Actually, let's create another, hold Alt and click and drag out to get another square. And then we're going to change the fill. And then this fill, we're going to zoom in really close to the color of the font and grab this blue right here. And then we'll do it again. And then we're going to change the fill to the background, which in this case is solid white. So we're going to rename these. This one will be our text, and then this one, it will just be our background. Now we have three images: accent, text, and background. Next, what we want to do is we want to actually turn these into styles. Color styles over here. You can do these manually, but I found it easier if we use a plugin. So you can actually go up here, click plugins, and then this is called Styler, and then I already have it here, and then you can click right here and save it. Mine says removed, but we can save it, and then you can hit run. And what this does is when you select your images, you can hit Control P and then type styler generate. And then what this will do is it'll generate the styles for us. As you can see over here, they just change from all the hex codes to actually selection colors, and then we can choose the actual colors. This will come in handy later when we do another plugin to get our styles for Flutter. And then next, what we're going to do is we're going to hit T on our keyboard, and we're going to just type in name. This is going to be the font size and styles that we'll use for the actual name. So for the text, we can come over here and change it to Roboto. And then for the font size, we can change it to 16. Now, again, you can click this little button, add another text style and name it that way. But I like to use Styler, so we'll just use Control P, Styler, generate styles, and then this will generate that style for us. Now we do have the fill on it as white. We don't want that, so we're going to click the little button and then choose our text color. So now we have our text color set up, or color set up, and then we have our text style set up, which is great. Now what we can do is if we make this a little bit smaller, we can look at this image and see what we need to create. And essentially we're going to be creating this and we're going to be creating the dotted border. So very easy to do. A quick way to get icons, we can go back up to plugins. This is what makes Figma so great. There's so many plugins. And then we can search material design icons, and it should be this one that says the community. And then we can just save it and then hit run. Now the icon that we want is of course going to be the plus sign, so we can hit add and grab that out, and then there we go. Now it's kind of hard for us to see it. What we're going to do is over on the selection colors, we're going to replace it with the color we've already made. It's going to be the exact same as our text color. And then in the this, we actually want to drag this out. So it's already in like a frame, but this frame is adding more space, which we don't really want. So what we can do is we can just drag it out of that and then delete the empty frame. You don't really have to do that, but just in case it messes up some of your design. So what we're going to do then is come up here, constrain proportions. We're going to switch it from 14 to 10, and then that makes it a 10 by 10. I'll zoom in a bit, and then we're going to select it and then hit Shift A on your keyboard, and that's going to create its own frame. But then this also has an auto layout, which we can see right here. The auto layout we're going to put in the middle. And now what we can do is we can actually auto lay it out, which is really cool. And we can give it a horizontal padding and a vertical padding. So for this padding, we're going to give it both 8 and 8. There we go. We can't see it yet, so we're going to give it a fill by clicking right here, and then we'll give it our background color. And then we want it to be a circle, so we'll come up to the corner radius and just add in 100. We now have a circle, which is nice. And then for the pass through, we don't really have to do this right now, but we can just change it from 100% to 75. We'll code it a little bit different where we do it on the color, but this saves us some time, which is great. Now what you can do just to keep yourself organized, we can go up to the frame, and then we can retitle this icon, I guess. Perfect. And then what we want to do is hit Shift A. This is going to create another frame on the outside. Now we're going to do the background image of the person. So we can do this by adding a fill. The fill doesn't really matter. We'll replace it, but just so we can see it, we'll add in the accent. We'll come back up to the corner radius and make it 100 so it makes it a circle. For the auto layout, we'll put it in the center just to make sure. And then for the horizontal padding and vertical padding, this one is going to be 16 and 16. And as you can see, it makes our circle bigger. Now, obviously, we don't want our purple background. What we do want is an image, and there's another great plugin. So go up to plugins and do avatars, and then you can run this as well. And if you run this with your image selected, it randomly just chooses an image and puts it inside your selector, which is really great. And then we can rename this at the top, profile image. Great. Now what we're going to do is hit Shift A again. This is going to create one more frame. We're going to rename this to begin with, and then this will be our border. So to do our border, we want to come up and do center auto layout. This time we want a horizontal and vertical padding of 4. And of course, we want the corner radius to be 100. But then instead of giving it a fill, we're going to give it a stroke. And the stroke is going to be our accent color, which is great. Now we don't want a solid stroke, we wanted a dotted stroke. So we can click the little button right here, and then instead of solid, we can go to dash. And then the dash lets you customize the dash in the gap. We're just going to put, I think we'll do 6. Yeah, 6 looks good. We'll just do 6 on all of them. You could do 8 if you want more, or a different angle. That is completely fine, but we'll just do 6. It looks good. And there we go. We now have, if you look at it, we kind of have the exact same thing that we have here. Ours is a little bit bigger, but that's okay. You could always tweak this if you want to by going back in the border, profile image, and then the icon. We could change the padding if we wanted to be 4. You can make the image smaller, whatever you want to do, but I think that looks good enough. Now with the border selected, what we can do then is, we can unselect it. We're done with the actual border and the whole profile image. What we want to do next is we want to hit T on our keyboard to get our text, and then we can give this some random text. I'll just put Spellthorn because why not? And then we can drag it kind of close to this. Then what we want to do is over here, select both of these by holding down Shift, and then we want to hit Shift A. This is again going to do an auto layout. We can then turn it into the center. And then right here with these little 3 dots, what we want to do is click that and then switch our spacing mode from packed to space between. Just like when we do columns, it's space between, and then this gives us more structure over it. And then just for the height, we want to make sure instead of it being 98, we want to make sure that it's 100. And as you can see, that automatically adds the spacing in between because of that. And then don't forget, we don't want to use colors we haven't actually saved. So click here and then change it to our text color. So there we go. And now we can rename this frame 1 to story because we now have a story. Now here's where the fun part comes with Figma. We can create a component out of this that we can use multiple times and tweak it if we need to. So to do that, select the story and then click here, right here, this button up here, create component. And then we're going to click it again, and this is going to create a variant. And the reason why we want a variant is because we want to be able to turn off this little add button. So what we can do is with the top one selected, not the bottom one, but with the top one selected, we want to come over where it says icon and click the little eye so it goes away. As you can see, we can now see the picture, and then we have the picture with the plus, right? And then with this one that says plus, to match our design, we actually wanted to say the profile name. In the design, it says you, so we can just make it say you. And then this doesn't matter. We'll change this in a moment. Cool. So now we actually have a story with two components. So what we want to do is select the actual component set, and then come over here. There's a little adjustment. It says edit property. And what we can do is we can give this anything we want, any name that we want, just so we know what it is. We'll call it person. And then for the first section, we want the first section to be everyone else. So we can double click it, rename it to others. And then for the other variants that we made, we want this to be you. Again, you can name it what you want, but that makes sense because it's you. Cool. Now we're pretty much done almost. So what we can do is we can come up here, hit F on our keyboard though, and create a frame. We'll just drag it out. The frame, we can click auto layout. Perfect. We'll give it a center. And then for the spacing in between each item, we just want it to be 16. And then the spacing on the left and right and top and bottom, just so we can see it look nice, we'll just do 20. Doesn't matter what you put this, we won't actually be using this, but that's what we'll use. And then you have two options. You can hold down Control and drag out your icon if you want. Your component, or you can go up to the assets now that we made a component, and then you can just drag it from here in. Now, as you can see, because it's an auto layout, it actually fixes to our icons that we made. But the cool thing is now we can just drag in more and then hit Control D to add more as well. So here we have 6 of them. We want to click the frame. Of course, we don't want it to say frame 1 just to make it easier for us. We'll just call it a list view. And now we're going to use a few more plugins. So the first plugin we're going to do, we've already done it. We can hold down Control, Shift, and then click each image. This will allow you directly select that. And then you can hit Control P and then type in avatars. And this will just give you random images of people, which is really cool. But we also want to change the names down here. So what we can do is we can find each name that's a female. This one, hold down Control Shift. Control Shift and Control Shift and select the ones with females. And then we can go into another plugin, and then this plugin is called Content Reels. And then we can, Content Reel, I'm sorry, and then hit Run. And then this will open up, it's really cool. So you can go to text, and then we want just the first name. So you'll scroll down a little bit until you see first name. I like the ones by Microsoft, but you can choose whichever ones you like. So for our females, we'll do first name female, and then hit Apply All, perfect. And then we'll unselect, and then we only have one male. So we'll Control click him, and then we can do first name male. Fantastic. And now obviously we're almost done, but we want the first design to actually have that icon. And again, it's very easy for us to do that. We can just select it, and then over here where we wrote person, instead of others, we can do you. And there you go. It changes to you, and then it just looks nice. And then let's say we wanted to change the person. We can just hit Control P and then do avatars. So one more. But yeah, let's see if we can get a male. There we go. Sure, that's not me, but could be. You never know. But there we go. We now have this design done. We pretty much went over colors. We created our own text style. We added components, and this looks great. So now what we can do is we can switch over to actually coding it using Flutter. Before we do though, what we want to do is we want to grab the colors and the text style that we created. And the easiest way to do that is there's another plugin, and that plugin is called Figma Styles Converter for Flutter. So you can search it right here. And then what this will do is you'll hit a run. And then I love this because it does all of the styles for us. You just hit analyze, and it will grab in our background color, give it the color, text, accent, I know in my previous videos this took a lot of time. Now it doesn't have to. And then we also have our text style for our text that we use. Gives us all of the information. So we can actually Control A and copy this. And now let's move on to creating our Flutter project. So with our Flutter project, we are going to just command into our terminal, cd into our desktop, and then we'll do Flutter create, and then we'll call this stories. Perfect. And then inside that, we'll cd into stories, and then we'll launch it in VS Code, code dot. Great. I've also gone ahead and zoomed in for you guys. I know a few of my comments asked if I could zoom in a little bit, so I've gone ahead and do that. Please let me know if this is big enough now. It's kind of really big for me, but hopefully it works for you guys. So we can get started then. Because we've already copied that in and we don't want to end up deleting it, right away we want to go into our lib folder, right click, go to new folder, call this utils, and then right click, go to new file, and call this styles.dart. And then we can just paste in what we got from Figma, and then Alt-Shift-F to format it better, and then save it. And as you can see, it brings in everything that we've used in our design. We didn't use much, there's not much here, but if we had a lot of stuff, it would just bring all of it in. Now, the only thing is we want to be able to add a color to our Figma style name. So what we can do is, it doesn't do it by default. We can add a color in here, and then we can just do Figma colors and then grab in our text. So we're going to have to manually do that. It doesn't do it for us, which is kind of sad, but we can manually do that. It only took a second. So we'll hit save there. And then what we can do is go back to our main file, and then we're going to start deleting this stuff out. So just make it easy. We'll drag down and delete. And then we'll start from scratch. We'll do a stateless widget. Our stateless widget we will call my app. And then we still need to return our material app. So we'll return a material app, debug false, and then home will be our home page, which we have to make. And we can do that right now. Go into our lib folder, new folder called pages. And then in our folder, do home underscore page dot dart, and then we're going to import our material. Perfect. And then do another stateless widget called homepage, and then this will get us set up to get started. And then we'll import the homepage, save it, and then run our app. All right, so here we are. Our app is running. We have the placeholder, which means we're ready to go. To get started, we're going to just build everything in our home page. But to get started, we're going to call a scaffold, just so it's not the placeholder anymore. We'll give it a background color, and then it's going to be Figma colors background. Again, that plugin does it, and it creates a method called Figma colors, and then we call the background, which is really cool. So very easy to use that then. We don't need an app bar, so we can just call a body. Because we're not using an app bar, we're going to call a safe area, and then with the safe area we want to call our list view. Now, there we go. We can get rid of our squiggles and save. Okay. Now, before we get started, because we're going to have a list view of people, what we want to do is we want to create that list. And in order to create that list easier, we want to also make a model. So we can go to our lib, right click, go to new folder, call this models, and then inside that folder, we'll make a new file called we'll just call it story.model underscore model.dart. Perfect. And then we'll make a class, and we'll call this story. Now our story needs to just take in a few things, not too much. We need an image, and then we need a name. So we can do that by doing string. We can do final string image, and then we'll do final string name. We don't need too much. And then if you click the little light bulb and then create a constructor, it'll do the rest for you, which is really nice. So save and close out of that. Now what we want to do is we want to create a list of people that we're going to be using in our list view of the stories. So to do that, we're going to, right under our build context, we're going to create a list. Now this list wants to use our model, so we'll call it a list of story. and then we will just call it stories. And to begin with, it's going to be an empty list. Now we get an issue on the word story. We need to import our model. Cool. We can save that. Now inside this, now what we can do is we can actually do a story like this, and then we just need to pass in an image and a name. So with the image, what we can do is there is a website, randomuser.me/photos. I'll put a link to it in the description. This is actually what Avatars uses. So what we can do is we can come in here and grab either male or female, or even Lego characters, which I think is pretty cool. And it's always going to be random images. I don't know. I think there's only like 100 of them. I don't know how many different ones they have, but we can do that then. And then we just want to grab a random person on here. I kind of like this guy. Let's grab this guy. So we'll right click, copy image address, and then we can paste that in here, and then we'll just give it a name. Now, because it's the first one, we're going to just save time in our coding, and we're going to just write you. Again, in the design, we could also do Spellthorn or whatever you want, but just to make it easier, we'll just write you. In a working app, it would write you anyhow, so it doesn't matter what the first name is, or it would write whatever your profile is, but just to match the design, we'll do you. Now what we want to do is we just want to add a few more of these, so we'll copy these over. We'll grab this guy because he looks like a person that would like to code, and then we can give them a random name. We can either match our design if we want to, or we can just start randomly picking names, whatever works. But we'll grab two guys, and then we'll grab a female, and then I like the name Charlotte because I'm not sure, and then we'll do two more. We can grab in, trying to think of colors, images that have a lot of colors in the background. This one we can call Stacy. And then the last one, how many is that? 2, 4. We'll do 2 more. We'll do one more guy to kind of space it up a little bit. Here's a good, and then we'll call him, we did Joseph, we can call Derek. And then the last one, we'll do one more female. And then, or we could do a Lego character. No, I'll do a female. And then we'll grab this one. Cool. There's another way to do this. As you can see, I don't actually have to look at the images. The websites are laid out very well. You could just add men and then a random number, but that's okay. And then we'll just call this one Aaron. Cool. So there's our list of people that we're going to use for our list view. Now I added a list view in here, but we don't actually want to use a list view because we want it to be dynamic. Normally we would use a list view builder, but instead of a list view builder, we actually want a list view separator. And the list view separator is really cool because it actually allows us to add a separation in between the two, which is just going to be a sized box with a width of 16. But it allows us to actually build an item builder as well as an item separator builder, which is really cool. So for the item count, first we need to give it, well, that's very easy. It's our stories.length. And then for the separator builder, we need to give this a separator builder. Now with the separator builder, you can actually click the little light bulb and then just create a method. And then this will bring back a separator builder. So we can come down here and hit return. And then since we don't need any information from above, we can do it this way. And then we'll just do a size box with a width of 16 because that's what our gap was in our design. And if you need me to, I can show you really quick. When we were doing the list view and all of that stuff, right here would have been the gap. So if we wanted more gap or less gap, this is that number that we're grabbing from, which is really cool. This is why I love Figma so much. Figma and Flutter go hand in hand. I mean, they are perfect. Everything you really need to know is already in Figma that you've designed, and then you just bring that information in. So just in case you were wondering how we knew that right away. But yeah, and now what we need to do is give it an item builder. Now, because the item builder is going to be using stuff like our story, we don't want to do the method. It just causes more problems. So we're just going to build it here, and then we'll do context, and then it'll do the pop-up. Cool. And then what we want to do here is we want to just return our story block or whatever we want to call it. So what we can do is we can go back to our lib, go to new folder, and inside of and create a new folder, and we'll call this components. Again, we want to keep this nice and clean, so that's what we're going to do. And then we'll make a new file, and we'll call this story_block.dart. And then we'll import our material, and then we will do a stateless widget, and then this stateless widget we'll call story block. Again, you can call it whatever you want, but that's what we're going to call it. And then for right now, what we can do is we can return our story block and then end it. And then we should get a lot of them because 1, it's going vertical, and 2, it's grabbing in our length, which is 6. Perfect. And then, but we don't want it vertical. We want it horizontal. So we can do scroll direction axis horizontal, and then because I know I don't want physics, we can turn those off right away. Physics const, and then I like bouncing scroll physics. That way there's no blue lines. Now this is taking up the entire space of the page, which we do not want. So to fix that, what we can do is we can click our list view, click the little light bulb, and wrap it with a size box, and we want to give it a height. And then the height that we're going to give it back to our design. Again, if we go back to our design, the height was 100 of our actual column. So that's what we want. Cool. And then we'll tweak that later if we need to. All right, so now we're almost done. What we need to do is just start working on our story block. So let's move to our story block, and then we're going to start creating this. Now, just like how we created the design from the icon out, we can do the exact same here as well. So we know that we want to start with an icon. So we're going to return an icon. Well, actually, we're going to return a column because we do want our system, again, back to the design. It was a column, right? It is a column right here, and then inside the column is a text in the circle. So we'll do the column first, and then we'll give it a child. So we'll start with comments. This will be a profile image, and then we'll come down here and do name. Cool. Let's start with the profile image. So we're going to start from smallest and out. So we can do that first by calling an icon, and then we want icons.add. And then of course we want the size, and the size is going to be 10. Now the only issue with this, and as you can see we're getting multiple of them, with icons in Figma and icons in Flutter, there's a little difference between what the size actually is. So even though our design asks for our icon, here we go. Our size asks for 10. If we do a size 10 in Flutter, it's kind of smaller. And I haven't been able to figure out why. So instead of 10, we're going to just bump it up to 14. That's kind of closer to what we want. I just want to make sure I called that out because it is a little weird. But now that we've done the icon, what we can do then is we want to click the light bulb and wrap it with a container. And now we can start doing the outside container, right? Well, we know what that is. We want it to have a padding. And then again, if you don't remember what the padding is, you can go back to your design. The padding on this was 8 right here, 8 and 8. So we can go back, and this is why I love Figma so much with Flutter. So we'll do const edge insets all. We'll do 8. Great. We need to give it a decoration, a box decoration. The color, we already know the color. It's going to be Figma colors dot background. Now with this, like I said earlier, we made it transparent in Figma, but we actually want it to be just the background transparent. So what we can do is we can highlight over this until we get this little pop-up, and then we can click at the top, and it's going to convert our image. Granted, you can make a custom image like this if you want to, but I find this is fine. If you use it more than once, then I would recommend using a custom image, but we're not going to. This is the only time we use it like this, so we'll just use it here. But definitely make a custom image if you want to, and just like we did earlier when we made it white, then just make it another one that's transparent. So we'll save that. It is kind of hard to see, but we'll fix that in a moment. And then we do want to add a shape, and then a box shape dot circle. And then that should be all that we need. Let's find out. We're going to click the container, click the light bulb, and then wrap it. You can't wrap it in a container again, which is sad. So we're going to wrap it with a widget and then call it container. And now this container is going to be the actual background image. So to do this, we're going to give it the padding that we need for the background image. We can do edgeinsets.all. If you're not sure what that was, you can go back to your design, and then this padding was 16 by 16. And we're using an 8 grid. I don't know if I know I didn't say that at the beginning, but when designing, I think everyone designs in 4 or 8. Very easy, so that's why everything is divisible by 4 or 8. So just keep that in mind. Except for 14, but it is, but not how we wanted it. So, but that's just a little tweak that we had to do for Flutter. And then just because I can't see it yet, we'll do decoration, box decoration, color, and then we'll do Figma colors dot accent, so we can actually see what we're doing now. Perfect. And then we will give this a shape again, and then the box shape dot circle. So as you can see, we're already building out our stuff, and it's kind of just like we did in Figma. We're just working the exact same way, which is really cool, and that's why I love Figma and Flutter. And I hope you guys like this video. Let me know. I would love to do a lot more design to codes. I think it's great. Once you know Flutter, you can know Figma. Once you know Figma, you can know Flutter. So I think it goes very hand in hand. So obviously we don't want a color here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an image, and then we'll do a decorative image. And then for this image, since we're using online images, we'll use network image, and then we'll give it that URL. So right now we're just going to copy over a person, copy image address. We'll change this in a minute, but just so we can actually see it. So there we go. And as you can see, it doesn't look too bad so far. And then that's all that we need there. And then what we need to do is click the container, click the light bulb. This is our last one. This is going to be for the dots. But we can't do anything right here because we can't, in Flutter by default, or at least easily, we can't actually use dotted borders. It doesn't work in Flutter. However, just like there was a plugin in Figma, there is dependencies or a project in Flutter that we can install. So hit Control tilde, and then we're going to do Flutter pub add, and this is called dotted underscore border. And this is what I love so much, is there's so many great people out there that just make things that we can use in Figma, in Flutter, and just makes our life easier. So now what we can do is we can click the light bulb and then go to widget, and then call the widget dotted border, and now we have the ability to make a dotted border, which is awesome. So as you can see, it looks kind of bad right now, so we can go ahead and save it and highlight over what we can give it. So we can give it a color. Well, we already know what the color is, right? Figma colors dot accent. Perfect. We obviously want it to be a circle, not a square, so we can do border type, and the border type, here we go, and then border type dot circle. This is awesome. And then what we need to do is we need to give it a padding. So we already know what that padding is. So we can do, and again, if you don't, go back to your design and find it, but it is 4. And now what we want to do is we need to give it a dash pattern. So the dash pattern takes 2 numbers, and it takes a double. So what we can do is you can tweak this how you want. I think what I like is 8,4. That kind of looks more like our design. But that is what we're going to use then. And just to make sure this is an actual list view, I know it gets cut off near the end, but that's because that's how it's designed. Cool. And then we just have to hit const here to get rid of the squiggles. So we're almost done. Obviously, if you look at this, we are missing our name. So let's go ahead and add in our name. That is very easy. We'll do text. We will give it just Spellthorn for right now. We'll replace that later. And then for the style, we need to give it our text style, which is Figma. Let me scroll down a bit. Figma textiles. And then we will call this, you need to add, for this one, you need to add the open and close and then do name, because it's actually calling the function and then grabbing the name. This is still kind of new to me, so I don't know exactly how to explain that, but Just copy like this, very easy. Now there is no spacing in between our image and our text like they're supposed to. Now we could add a sized box in here, but we don't want to. What we want to do is just manipulate it with the column, just like we did in Figma, space between. We can do the same here and then call it main axis alignment, space between, and that does it for us, which is awesome. So we don't have to do anything. I also realized Spellthorn barely fits in here. So, but again, that's proof of design. What happens if the name is too long? Well, we don't know because the designer didn't design it that way. Cool. So last but not least, at least on this section, we see that we don't want the plus on all of them. So an easy way to fix this is we need to start bringing in some variables. Also, we need to change the image and the text. So now's a great time to do that. So to do that, we're going to do final int index. We will do final string, and then this will be image. And then we'll do final string, and then this will be the name. The index is going to be the index in the list because we only want the plus sign on 0, aka the first one. So we're going to have to grab that plugin, that index from when we call this. So we want that there. And then we need to give it a highlight here and click the light bulb to add our fields. Perfect. And then we can go through the code and actually delete out what we've added and actually call them here, which makes it very easy. Just make sure you start deleting your consts that you added in. So we're going to replace the image, and then we're going to replace name, and that should be all. Now, of course, like I said earlier, we need that plus to go away if it's not the first one. So there's many ways for you to do that, but what I think is the easiest way is we can start manipulating stuff with ifs, ifs, then that, type that. But we can't really add an if statement here. So what we can do is we can find where that container is. Right here is the icon. Now with the icon, I actually realized I forgot to give it a color. So we do, and we're going to be messing with this, which is great. So we want to do color, and then the color that we want to give it is just going to be the same as our text color. I did realize I forgot to do that. So we'll do Figma colors, and then we'll do text. Perfect. There we go. Now it's that dark blue or whatever this color is. Great. But this actually comes in handy because when we want the plus sign to disappear, well, we can't just remove this because of how we built the design. We want it to just not show it. It's still there, but we want it to be invisible. So the easiest way to do that is we can just mess with the colors based on our index. So let's see that in action. So we'll come up to the main container that's having the padding, this little background image, background container of that, which is right here. So what we can do is we can type index is equal to 0, question mark. And what this means is if, without writing if, it says if index is equal to 0, do whatever is after the question mark. But then we also have to have else, which is a colon, colon. Then what else are we going to do? In this case, we're going to say is if index is equal to 0, then that's the first one we want to show this, so we'll use the color. But if it's not, then we just want the colors to be transparent. And now we are getting an error on the index because of the const. So I went through that pretty quick, but what we're doing is if index is equal to 0, then show the first color. If it's not, then show this color, which is transparent because we don't want to see it. We want to see it if it's the first one, but if it's not the first one, we don't want to see it. And then we can do the same on the icon, because if we just left this here, the white background will be gone, but the plus icon will still be there. So we can do the same on this color. Delete the const so we don't get an error, and then do index is equal to 0, question mark. And this is what makes Flutter really interesting, because you start manipulating stuff just by adding, I forget the term, and I'm so sorry, but you know what I mean. You know what this is called. Let me know in the comments what it's called, because I never remember, but question mark and a semicolon. So it's an inline if statement. Now, as you can see, nothing's changed, but we're almost done. So we'll go back to our home page, and now we're getting an error with our story block because we need to pass in that information that we required it, right? So to get started, first what we're going to do is create a variable, and we'll call this story. And then what we want is story is going to be stories, which is our list. Let me scroll down a little bit. And then we want to pass the index. So every time it loops through this, it's going to be stories 0, which is the first one, stories 1, which is the second one, etc. And now what we can do is we can return our story block, and now we can pass in that information. The index is what we need most to hide the stuff, and that's already going to pass. But for the image, what we need to do is we need to pass in our image. So we can do story.image. And then for the name, we need to pass in the name, and then the name will be story because of this right here. Story is really stories index, but then we don't have to write that. So stories index and then dot name. Great. And then make sure you have the semicolon at the end. And when we save it, that should start grabbing in that information. So we can refresh, and there we go. We now have random images per person. We also have random names that we gave here: you, Joseph, Charlotte, Stacy, Derek, Aaron. And then the best part is only the first image actually has that plus sign because all the other ones are hidden, which is really cool. And then of course, this doesn't look the best because it's booted up against the wall. So what we can do is we can just add some padding in here. To add the padding, we actually have the ability to add padding on the list view separator itself, which is actually really great because we don't have to constrain it to an actual container. We can just make it have padding on the left and right when we're actually using the list view. So to do that, we can do padding and then const edge insets dot symmetric. And then we just want to add this on the horizontal because we're using a horizontal list. We just want it on the horizontal, and because of our design, we'll do it as 20. Now this actually, as you can see, brings it from the left of 20, but we can actually still scroll to the edge of the screen, which makes it nice, much nicer. I wasn't able to do that in my older videos because I didn't use the list view dot separator. So there was always that section where it just went into disappeared, but it also works the same on the right side, so it's not butt up against the wall. We still need to add padding on the top though, so we can come up to our sized box, click the light bulb, and then wrap with a padding, and then change it from all to only, and then only do the top, and then the top will be 20. So we want to do padding on the sized box for the top, but then use padding in the separate list view dot separated to do the left and right. And now there we go. It looks much nicer. We are finished, and this looks really good. I hope you enjoyed this video. I love being able to design stuff in Figma and then code it in Flutter. Hopefully you do too. Let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know what else you'd like us to create, maybe on our next episode. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.